Most people drive past a stranded car without giving it a second glance. Some glance at it briefly, then turn their eyes back to the road, deciding it's not their problem. But on that warm Saturday afternoon, a 12-year-old boy named Malik stopped pedaling his old, squeaky bike when he saw a sleek black Bentley sitting awkwardly on the side of the quiet road that cut through his neighborhood. The car looked expensive, like something out of a movie, shiny, polished, and completely out of place on a street where cracked sidewalks, faded paint, and rusted fences told a story of struggle. One of its tires was visibly flat, sagging against the pavement. Beside the car stood a man in a tailored suit, sweat glistening on his forehead as he tapped impatiently on his phone. Malik slowed down, curiosity pulling at him. He'd seen flat tires before. His uncle, who ran a small repair shop just 2 blocks away, had taught him the basics. He'd even helped out on weekends, fetching tools, holding flashlights, and watching carefully as his uncle's rough, grease-stained hands worked with quiet precision. Malik wasn't a professional, but he had confidence in his ability to handle a flat tire. He balanced his bike on its stand, and in a small voice called out, "Need some help, sir?" The man looked up, startled, as though he hadn't expected anyone from this neighborhood to approach him, especially not a kid. His brows furrowed, and then he gave a half-smile that carried both relief and disbelief. "Do you know anything about changing a tire?" His voice carried the polished tone of someone used to boardrooms and conference calls, not dusty backstreets. Malik nodded quickly. "Yeah, my uncle fixes cars. I help him out sometimes." He spoke with a confidence that surprised even him. The man's eyes flicked to Malik's worn sneakers, his shirt slightly faded from too many washes, and then to the boy's earnest face. For a moment, the man seemed unsure, but the alternative was waiting hours for roadside assistance to find. Their way into this neighborhood, and his schedule wasn't forgiving. With a small sigh, he gestured toward the trunk. "All right then, let's see what you got, kid." Malik grinned. He leaned his bike gently against a nearby tree and jogged over. The trunk popped open with a soft click, and inside sat a spotless spare tire, neatly placed with tools that looked like they'd barely ever been touched. Malik pulled out the jack, the wrench, and the spare, and knelt down beside the flat tire. The man, whose name Malik would later learn was Mr. Anderson, stood watching, arms crossed, his polished shoes dusted by the road. Malik loosened the bolts carefully, gritting his teeth as the stubborn metal resisted. His small hands strained, but he remembered his uncle's words. "It's all about leverage, boy. Put your weight into it and don't rush." Following the memory, Malik pressed down firmly, and one by one, the bolts gave way with sharp, metallic clicks. Mr. Anderson tilted his head, his interest piqued. He had expected a child to fumble, maybe even give up. Instead, Malik worked with methodical focus. He slid the jack under the car, pumping steadily until the Bentley lifted off the ground. Then, with practiced care, he pulled off the ruined tire and rolled it aside. Sweat trickled down his forehead, but his movements remained sure. He positioned the spare, aligned the holes, and tightened the bolts in a crisscross pattern, just as his uncle had drilled into him. Within 15 minutes, the Bentley was standing tall again, ready to glide across the city as though nothing had happened. Malik wiped his forehead with the back of his sleeve and stood, brushing dust off his hands. "There you go, sir. Good as new." His smile was wide, but not boastful, just the quiet pride of someone who had done a good job. Mr. Anderson stared at him, still processing what had just happened. He had expected to stand here for hours, waiting for a tow truck or service van, but instead this boy had handled the situation like a pro. His gaze softened. "How old are you?" he asked. 12, Malik replied, adjusting his bike chain absent-mindedly. 12, Mr. Anderson repeated, almost to himself. He reached into his wallet, pulling out a crisp $100 bill. "You just saved me a lot of time, Malik. Take this." Malik looked at the bill, then back at the man. He shook his head firmly. "No, sir. I don't want money." Mr. Anderson blinked, confused. What do you mean you don't want money? You did a job. Jobs deserve payment. Malik smiled shyly. My uncle always says if you charge for kindness, then it's not kindness anymore. I just wanted to help. His words came out simple, almost childlike, but the weight behind them landed heavily on Mr. Anderson. For a moment, the millionaire didn't know what to say. People didn't usually turn down his money. In his world, everything had a price: time, service, loyalty. Yet here was a boy in worn-out sneakers, refusing $100 with a smile. Mr. Anderson slid the bill back into his wallet, studying Malik. There was something about the boy's sincerity, his confidence, that struck him in a way he couldn't explain. He found himself asking questions he normally wouldn't ask strangers. Where do you live, Malik? Just down the street, Malik answered, pointing toward a row of small houses with peeling paint and cluttered porches. With my mom. She works long hours at the diner. Something tightened in Mr. Anderson's chest. He saw the cracked sidewalks, the faded playground nearby, the graffiti-smeared walls, and then he looked back at Malik, standing there with his chin lifted, proud of what he had done. This boy, in a place where most kids didn't dream beyond surviving, was different. Well, Mr. Anderson said at last, clearing his throat, I'm grateful, Malik. You didn't just fix my car, you saved my day. He extended his hand, and Malik shook it firmly, surprising him again with the strength of his grip. Malik just grinned, hopped back on his bike, and pedaled off toward home. The rusty chain rattled, the wheels squeaked, but Malik felt light, like he had done something important. He didn't know who the man was, and he didn't think too much about it. To him, helping someone in need was just the right thing to do. But to Mr. Anderson, sitting back in his Bentley as the engine purred to life, that encounter replayed in his mind like a scene burned into memory. He kept hearing Malik's words. If I charged for kindness, then it wouldn't be kindness anymore. They gnawed at him, softened him, made him question when was the last time someone had helped him without expecting something in return. He drove away, still thinking about the boy with the bike, not realizing yet how deeply that small act of generosity would alter the course of both their lives. A week passed since that afternoon with the flat tire, but Malik hadn't thought much more about it. He had school, chores, and his daily routine of helping his mother around the house. Life in his neighborhood didn't slow down. Sirens still echoed in the distance at night. Neighbors still argued on porches, and the cracked streets were still filled with kids running around with basketballs and worn-out sneakers. Malik was just another boy with big dreams tucked away in his heart. Dreams he didn't often share because people in his neighborhood laughed when you said you wanted to be more than what you were born into. That Friday afternoon, he was pedaling, home from school with his backpack bouncing against his shoulders. He was sweaty from the heat, his bike rattling like it always did, when he noticed the same sleek black Bentley rolling slowly down the street beside him. For a moment, Malik thought he was imagining it. That car didn't belong here. It was too polished, too perfect for these cracked roads. But then the tinted window rolled down, and there was the man he had helped just a week earlier. "Hop in, Malik," the man called out with a smile. Malik slowed his bike, heart pounding. In there?" "Yes, in here," the man said, chuckling. "Don't worry, I don't bite. I just want to talk to you. Leave your bike here. I'll have someone pick it up." Malik hesitated. His mom had always warned him about getting into strangers' cars. But something about this man, his polished manner, the way he spoke, the fact that he remembered Malik's name, put him at ease. He leaned his bike against a fence and cautiously slid into the Bentley's back seat. The moment he sat down, his senses were overwhelmed by the smell of leather, the hum of the engine, the cool blast of air conditioning. It was like stepping into another world, a world far removed from his small house with its squeaky floorboards and second-hand furniture. "Comfortable?" the man asked as he pulled back into the road. "Yeah," Malik whispered, staring wide-eyed at the glowing screen on the dashboard, the spotless interior, the way the world outside looked different through tinted windows. "My name's Anderson," the man said. Richard Anderson, but most people just call me Mr. Anderson. And you're Malik, right? Yes, sir. Mr. Anderson nodded, a thoughtful smile playing on his lips. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since last week. You surprised me, Malik. You didn't just fix my car, you refused my money. Do you know how rare that is? Malik shrugged, unsure how to answer. It wasn't about money. I just wanted to help. That's exactly why I'm here, Mr. Anderson said, his tone shifting. Most people in my world don't do anything unless there's something in it for them. But you did something because it was right. That means something. It shows character. Malik stared out the window, unsure what to say. Compliments made him uncomfortable. In school, he wasn't the top student. At home, he wasn't the oldest or the strongest. He was just Malik. But the way Mr. Anderson spoke made him feel like he was more than that, like he had done something extraordinary. The car weaved through streets Malik had never seen before. The broken sidewalks and corner stores gave way to wide avenues, shining glass buildings, and fountains that glittered in the sunlight. Malik pressed his face against the window, taking it all in. He had never been to this part of the city. It looked like another world, clean, sharp, full of energy. Finally, the Bentley pulled up in front of a towering building that seemed to touch the clouds. Its glass walls shimmered, and bold letters across the front read, Anderson Real Estate Group. Malik's jaw dropped. You own this? He asked in disbelief. Mr. Anderson smiled modestly. Yes, this is my company headquarters. Come on, I want to show you something. They walked through the gleaming glass doors, and Malik's sneakers squeaked against the marble floor. The lobby was massive, with high ceilings, polished floors, and people in sharp suits bustling about with purpose. Malik felt small, almost invisible, as he followed Mr. Anderson. But what struck him most wasn't the wealth. It was how everyone seemed to treat Mr. Anderson with respect. People greeted him with, "Good afternoon, sir," and nodded politely. As he walked past, he led Malik into a grand office on the top floor, its windows offering a breathtaking view of the entire city. Malik pressed his palms against the glass, staring out in awe. He had never been so high up, never seen his city from this perspective. Do you know why I brought you here? Mr. Anderson asked, lowering himself into a leather chair behind a massive oak desk. Malik shook his head, still staring out the window. Because I see something in you, Mr. Anderson said. You may not realize it yet, but you have qualities that can take you far in life. Kindness, determination, honesty. Those are rare, and I believe in rewarding rare qualities. Malik turned to face him, unsure if he was supposed to speak. His heart pounded, torn between disbelief and curiosity. I want to give you an opportunity, Mr. Anderson continued. Tell me, Malik, what's your dream? If money wasn't an issue, if nothing could stop you, what would you want to be? Malik hesitated. It felt silly to say his dreams out loud, but something about the way Mr. Anderson asked made it feel safe to share. I want to be an engineer, he said quietly. I want to build things that last, bridges, buildings, machines, things people can use for a long time. Mr. Anderson's eyes softened. He leaned back, folding his hands. That's an incredible dream, and you can achieve it. But to get there, you'll need the right tools, the right education, and the right support. And I want to help give you those things. Malik's eyes widened. You want to help me? Yes, Mr. Anderson said firmly. You gave me your kindness when I was stranded, and you asked for nothing in return. Now I want to give you something in return, not because you asked, but because you deserve it. From that day forward, Malik's life began to change in ways he could never have imagined. Mr. Anderson hired a private tutor to help him with math and science subjects Malik loved but struggled to get ahead in at school. Suddenly, his evenings weren't just about finishing homework. They were about learning advanced concepts, exploring new ideas, and challenging himself. Mr. Anderson also enrolled him in a weekend STEM program at a nearby university, where Malik got to build small robots, design model bridges, and work alongside other kids who shared his passion. For the first time, Malik didn't feel out of place for loving science. He felt like he belonged. But it wasn't just about academics. Mr. Anderson made sure Malik saw what success looked like. He invited him to company events, introduced him to engineers and architects, and encouraged him to ask questions. He told Malik stories of his own struggles growing up, how he built his company from nothing, how he had failed and risen again. These conversations lit a fire inside Malik, a belief that he too could rise beyond his circumstances. At home, his mother was overwhelmed with gratitude. She would clasp Malik's face in her hands and whisper, "God put you on that road for a reason, son." Tears often welled in her eyes when she spoke of how one act of kindness had opened a door she could never have opened on her own. Malik, though young, began to understand something important. Life-changing opportunities don't always arrive wrapped in gold. Sometimes they come disguised as a flat tire on the side of the road. He still rode his bike through the same cracked streets, still lived in the same small house, but inside, everything felt different. He walked taller, studied harder, and dreamed bigger. He no longer wondered if he could escape the cycle of struggle that surrounded him. He knew he could. And through it all, Mr. Anderson was there, not just as a benefactor, but as a mentor, a guide, and a living reminder that sometimes the smallest choices, like stopping to help, can change everything. Years moved quickly, and the boy on a rusty bike who once knelt down to change a tire was no longer the same. Malik grew taller, his face sharpened with maturity, and his eyes carried the determination of someone who knew exactly where he was headed. The shy 12-year-old who had once refused a $100 bill now stood at the threshold of a future most kids from his neighborhood never even dreamed possible. But he never forgot where it all started. The day of his high school graduation was one Malik had been counting down to for years. The small auditorium was packed with parents, teachers, and students, the stage draped with the school's faded banners. Malik's mother sat in the front row, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes already glistening with tears of pride. Beside her, sitting sharply dressed in his tailored suit, was Mr. Anderson, who looked as proud as any father would have. When Malik's name was called, the audience erupted into cheers. His mother stood, clapping so hard her palms stung. Mr. Anderson stood too, his face glowing with quiet satisfaction as he watched Malik cross the stage and accept his diploma. Malik's steps were steady, his back straight, but inside, his heart was pounding. He had done it, not just for himself, but for his family, for his neighborhood, for everyone who had told him he couldn't. What came next was a surprise even to Malik. The principal called him back to the podium and announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, our valedictorian, Malik Johnson." The room fell silent for a moment, and then the applause thundered. Malik's classmates turned to him in shock, some with admiration, others with disbelief. Malik himself hadn't expected to stand there, but as he walked to the microphone, he knew he had something to say. He gripped the podium with both hands, his voice trembling at first, but gaining strength as he spoke. "I come from a place where people don't expect kids like me to make it far. Most of us are told to keep our heads down, to not dream too big. But one day, when I was 12 years old, I stopped to help a stranger change a flat tire. That simple act of kindness changed my life in ways I could never have imagined." His voice broke slightly, but he pressed on. "That stranger became my mentor. He believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. He opened doors I never knew existed. But I want you all to hear me clearly. The reason I stand here today isn't just because someone helped me. It's because I chose to help first. One small decision can change everything. One act of kindness can ripple into a future you never thought possible." The auditorium was silent, every ear tuned to Malik's words. Even the teachers who once doubted him, who thought he was just another boy destined to fall through the cracks, were leaning forward, their expressions softening. Malik took a deep breath and finished. If there's one thing I want everyone to take away from my journey, it's this. Don't be afraid to give, even when you think you have little. Because sometimes, when you give without expecting anything in return, the universe gives back in ways you can't even imagine. The crowd rose to its feet, clapping and cheering, some even wiping tears. Malik's mother covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking with pride. Mr. Anderson, though composed, felt his throat tighten as he clapped harder than anyone in the room. In that moment, he wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a man who had witnessed the power of kindness come full circle. Graduation was only the beginning. Mr. Anderson made sure Malik had the support to pursue his dream of becoming an engineer. Scholarships rolled in, doors opened, and Malik found himself studying at one of the top universities in the country. For the first time, he lived far from his neighborhood, surrounded by people from backgrounds he had only ever seen on television. But instead of shrinking, Malik thrived. He poured himself into his studies, spending long nights in the lab, designing prototypes, building models, and losing himself in the joy of creating. There were struggles, moments when he felt out of place, when classmates looked at him like he didn't belong, when the weight of expectations nearly crushed him. But whenever doubt crept in, Malik remembered that dusty road, that flat tire, and Mr. Anderson's unwavering belief in him. It was enough to keep him going. Years passed, and Malik graduated again, this time with honors in engineering. Mr. Anderson and his mother were there in the crowd, cheering louder than anyone else. The pride in their faces was the fuel Malik carried as he stepped into the next phase of his life. He didn't just want to build a career. He wanted to build something lasting, something that gave back to the community that raised him. And he did. After gaining experience in his field, Malik returned home, not just as an engineer, but as a leader. He saw the cracked sidewalks, the abandoned lots, the schools with outdated textbooks, and he knew he had to act. With Mr. Anderson's support and his own growing influence, Malik spearheaded the construction of a new community center, right in the heart of his neighborhood. It wasn't just a building. It was a place for kids to learn, to dream, to feel safe. He set up after-school programs, STEM workshops, and scholarships for children who wanted to pursue higher education. He even opened a scholarship fund in D's, his mother's name, ensuring her sacrifice and resilience would never be forgotten. The first day the community center opened, Malik stood by the door as children flooded in. Some carried worn-out backpacks, some came barefoot, but all of them had wide eyes full of curiosity and hope. Malik bent down to greet them, remembering himself at their age, on a bike, unsure of what the future held. Now, he was the one giving opportunities. Now, he was the one planting seeds of possibility. Word spread quickly about what Malik was doing. Local newspapers wrote about him, schools invited him to speak, and even city officials praised his efforts. But Malik never let the attention change him. Whenever someone asked why he cared so much, his answer was always the same. Because once, someone cared for me. Through it all, Mr. Anderson remained by his side. He lived long enough to see Malik's vision take shape, to see the boy he had once met on a dusty road grow into a man who changed countless lives. On quiet evenings, the two would sit together in Mr. Anderson's study, reminiscing about that day with the flat tire. "You didn't just fix my car that day, Malik," Mr. Anderson said one evening, his voice frail with age but steady with conviction. "You fixed my faith in humanity. I thought I had seen it all. But you reminded me that there are still people in this world who do good just because it's the right thing to do." Malik's eyes stung with tears as he listened. "And you showed me that sometimes. Kindness comes back in ways you never expect." Mr. Anderson smiled, his eyes glistening. "You're proof of that." When Mr. Anderson passed away a few years later, Malik was devastated. But he carried his mentor's words and lessons in his heart like a compass, At the funeral, he stood before the crowd and spoke. He believed in me when the world didn't. He taught me that true wealth isn't measured by what you own, but by what you give. And because of him, I will spend the rest of my life giving to others. And Malik kept his promise. His projects expanded beyond his neighborhood, reaching cities across the state. He built bridges, literally and figuratively, connecting communities, creating opportunities, and inspiring others to believe in kindness. Yet, no matter how far he went, Malik always remembered that boy on a bike, sweaty and determined, who stopped to help without expecting anything in return. He remembered the squeak of the wheels, the rattling chain, the hot pavement under his knees, and he remembered how that one choice set everything in motion. One day, years later, Malik was driving through his old neighborhood. He saw a young boy on a bike stop to help an elderly woman carry her groceries. Malik pulled over and watched with a smile, recognizing himself in that boy's small act of kindness. It was proof that goodness continues to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond what we can see. The story had come full circle, and so, the boy who once fixed a tire on the side of the road had grown into a man who fixed lives, who built futures, who proved that kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change the world. The end.